Nobody's talking about this underrated driver. Beating a 7-time world champion in races and quali, scoring podiums and now even a win, isn't enough for people to be excited about English driver George Russell. The Formula 1 media is way too busy piling on the current world champion Max Verstappen because he had the nerve to defend hard against another Englishman. So I took it upon myself to show some appreciation to this mischievous old chap and started writing the script for this video. And now that Max Verstappen and Lando Norris have left this whole ordeal behind them now, we can also let it rest. So I hope you enjoy this video. I'm Wimbo. Here's 3 seconds to leave a like. Lucky versus unlucky. George Russell has an awful lot of talent and skill. He's lucky that way. He was just unfortunate to reach the pinnacle of motorsport, Formula 1, at a time when the team he was part of had Lewis Hamilton and was extremely dominant. He preferred to have Valtteri Bottas beside him in the other seat, rather than a talented young one like Russell. This meant effectively that Russell was stuck in the slowest car on the grid for 3 long years. The once mighty Williams team was run poorly by Claire Williams, and it took years before she dared to sell the team off to a group of investors. In those days, the car wouldn't be finished in time for testing and drivers were hired who brought money rather than score points on the track. Russell showed enormous talent, especially in qualifying, which almost saw him score a pole position in Spa in the rain. Russell was placed in that seat on behalf of Mercedes, who supplied the engines to the Grove-based team. They still do now and might get another Mercedes protege. But let's not dwell on silly season predictions in this video. We'll do that some other time. In any case, Russell did get that seat in the top team that we know as Mercedes AMG Petronas F1 team in 2022. He was just very unlucky that it wasn't a top team anymore. Well, still a top team, but not a dominant force like the years before he joined. He was paired up with Lewis Hamilton, who was fired up to take revenge for the title he didn't win in 2021. Russell did manage to outscore the 7-time world champion, and that was pretty impressive. The following season went a bit less for Russell, and in a season with plenty of mistakes he finished 59 points behind Hamilton in P8. Hamilton was third, so you can see that being lucky and unlucky is very close. In the meantime, Russell did entertain us with quirky old man humor and some outstanding drives. And his radios are always brilliant too.
Is anyone else report in the rain? I think it sweats from the inside of my helmet.
I just love how he does all these poses and all the funny stuff that he does, like turning around in the car, being like a model. He just loves being in the spotlight. And you know, with a world champion that is so modest and quite boring, it's nice to see somebody shine the way he does. 2024. George Russell is having a cracker season so far. On all the speed graphs of the professional F1 YouTube pages, like the race, you see that the W15, this year's Mercedes car, is 4th fastest. That means that 7th place is the best position if everything goes as normal. The only major hiccup was when Fernando Alonso was being his sneaky old self and braked in a way Russell didn't expect, and he went off track and flipped the car. This happened in the Australia race. He was terrified as he was in the middle of the track and was screaming for a red flag. Luckily, there was a big enough gap between the cars behind him and they all slowed down properly under double yellows. Besides that mishap, Russell has managed a bunch of decent 5th and 6th places in the rounds before the current triple header. And Mercedes as a team is moving upwards as well. Mercedes, after years of developing in the wrong direction, have found a steady platform to have the car in and are slowly creeping towards being the 3rd fastest car instead of the 4th fastest car. We can see the improvements in his results. We saw him score the team's first podium this season in Canada, a 4th place in Spain, and recently a win in Austria. In Canada he put the car on pole too, and all this time he's beating his well-decorated teammate Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton even reverted to some mind games by hinting there was some foul play going on in the Mercedes garage. But Georgie didn't let any of that bother him and is putting in amazing weekends. I'm glad to see it because I have a lot of time for George Russell. I can't explain why. Maybe it's because he's usually a happy chap who embraces the spotlight he's in without any reservation. I think I'd be the same in his place. You only live once. Being in the pinnacle of motorsport is something that is really amazing, and I can just tell that George Russell loves every single minute of it. And that enthusiasm, that rubs off on me. That's why I like him. Expectations for Russell. I think Russell will continue being a solid driver, and with the car improving we'll see more podiums and wins. I don't see him as a driver who can make the difference if the performance of the competing team cars is the same as his package, and he's far from a super consistent driver. However, I do think that if Mercedes comes out in 2026 with an overpowered engine again like they did in 2014, Russell can be a world champion. Although that depends on who's replacing Lewis Hamilton, who's leaving for Ferrari after this season. If it's Kimi Antonelli, then I think Russell will stay the strongest driver at Mercedes, for a while anyway. If Toto Wolff gets his way, and sees his prayers answered, with Max Verstappen leaving Red Bull and joining Mercedes, then I think it's tough luck for George Russell. In any case, keep an eye on George Russell, and don't get distracted by the media piling on Max Verstappen for that whole Norris thing. With performances fluctuating all over the grid, we can see a Ferrari revival, Mercedes getting another boost, and McLaren hitting some limits, which will all benefit this great season. This is what everybody was dreaming about in 2023 when Max was winning race after race. We want to see fights for wins. We want to see fights at the top. And the more drivers get to the top, the better it is. I want to see a fight between Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, you name them. They're all welcome at the top. That's why it's so incredibly important for George Russell to continue growing the way he is right now. We've seen what he's capable of on his good days. And now he has to make sure that all of his days in every weekend are good. He is of that generation of drivers that are hitting their peak, where the older guys have started to drop off. This is the time for Russell, Albon and Norris to show everyone what they're made of. And we're here to enjoy it. Formula 1 would benefit greatly if everybody is invested again because of what's happening in front of the field. And you know what would benefit me? If you subscribe. Take care now. Doei doei.